The Galactic Veterinary Council had protocols. Strict, unyielding protocols that had governed interspecies medical care for 3,000 cycles. Dr. Zelvoth, a Corinthian with 4 eyes and chitinous plating that reflected the sterile lights of the medical bay, stood over the examination table with what passed for concern among his species. "I cannot treat this creature," he announced, his translator rendering the clicks and whistles into standard galactic. "The species is unregistered. The liability forms alone would take weeks to process." Jessica Chen stood in the corner of the room, her arms crossed, watching the scene unfold. She had been on Station Kepler 442 for only 3 months, working as a xenobiologist cataloging newly discovered fauna. The small creature on the table, no bigger than a terrier, whimpered and trembled, its 6 legs tucked underneath its body. Its fur shifted colors with each labored breath from deep purple to sickly gray. "It's dying," Jessica said quietly. "Unfortunate but unavoidable," Zelvoth replied without emotion. "Without proper classification, without understanding its biochemistry, attempting treatment could cause more harm. The Council forbids." "The Council can go to hell," a voice interrupted from the doorway. James Morrison stepped into the medical bay, his worn jacket still bearing traces of engine grease from the cargo bay where he'd been working. He wasn't supposed to be here. Human maintenance workers rarely entered the medical sectors. But Jessica had sent him a desperate message 20 minutes ago. "You're out of your jurisdiction." "Human," Zelvoth warned, his mandibles clicking in displeasure. James ignored him entirely. He moved to the examination table with the kind of confidence that came from experience, not arrogance. His calloused hands hovered over the creature, not touching yet, just letting it sense his presence. "Easy, buddy," he whispered. "Easy now." The creature's color shifted slightly, less gray, more of a tentative blue. One of its 6 eyes cracked open, focusing on James's face. Jessica had known James for exactly 2 months and 17 days. They'd met in the station's communal dining area when she'd been struggling to open a container of Centauri fruit paste. He'd helped her with a simple twist and a smile, then told her about his family's veterinary practice back on Earth. 4 generations of Morrisons, healing everything from cats to cattle. "That's not your field," Zelvoth protested. "You repair machinery." "I repair broken things," James corrected, his eyes never leaving the creature. "And this buddy here is definitely broken." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small medical scanner, outdated by galactic standards but human-made and reliable. As it hummed to life, James began running it over the creature's body with methodical precision. "Elevated core temperature. Respiratory distress, possible internal hemorrhaging," he muttered, more to himself than to the others. "Jessica, that protein synthesis data you showed me last week, the one about Kepler fauna having silicon-based cellular structures?" She understood immediately. "You think it's silicon poisoning?" "Station uses carbon scrubbers in this sector," James replied, his hands now gently probing the creature's abdomen. "Buddy here probably wandered in from the nature preserve. Been breathing wrong atmosphere for hours." Zelvoth's 4 eyes widened in what might have been surprise. "That would explain the symptoms. But treatment would require a silicon-oxygen exchange and cellular stabilization," James finished. "You got any liquid silicon compounds in here?" "This is highly irregular," Zelvoth insisted, but he was already moving toward a storage unit. "The Council will require documentation, approval forms. The Council will require a living patient to file a report about," Jessica interjected, surprising herself with her own boldness. She'd spent her whole career following protocols, filling out forms waiting for approvals. But watching James work, watching him see the problem that sophisticated alien medicine had missed, something shifted in her perspective. James prepared the treatment with practiced efficiency, talking softly to the creature the entire time. "That's right, buddy. We're gonna fix you up. Gonna get you breathing right again. Easy now, easy." His hands moved with a gentleness that seemed incongruous with his rough appearance, the kind of gentleness that came from spending childhood summers helping injured strays, from sitting up all night with sick animals, from believing that every life, no matter how small or strange, mattered. The procedure took 47 minutes. Zelvoth watched in silence, occasionally handing James instruments without being asked, falling into the rhythm of the work despite his earlier protests. Jessica monitored the creature's vital signs on the outdated human scanner. calling out readings that James acknowledged with slight nods. When the creature's fur finally shifted to a steady, healthy green, when its breathing evened out and all 6 eyes opened with clarity, something changed in that medical bay. Zelvoth's mandibles moved in what Jessica had learned was the Corinthian equivalent of thoughtful contemplation. "How did you know?" the alien doctor asked. James cleaned his hands with sanitizing gel, his expression unchanged. "Back home we had a saying, when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. Means look for the simple answer first." He gently stroked the creature's head, and it purred, an unmistakably contented sound that transcended species. "But sometimes you gotta remember that on some planets, it actually is zebras, or 6-legged silicon-based fauna," Jessica added with a slight smile. The creature stood shakily, then with increasing confidence. It nuzzled against James's hand before hopping off the table and scurrying toward the door, its color now a vibrant, healthy emerald. Zelvoth stood silent for a long moment. Then, with deliberate ceremony, he extended one of his articulated limbs toward James. "The council may have protocols," he said slowly, "but perhaps protocols should not supersede compassion or competence." James shook the offered appendage, claw, hand, with the same easy confidence he'd shown throughout. "Protocols are good," he said, "but they're tools, not gods. Sometimes you just gotta trust your instincts and whisper, 'Easy, buddy.'" As they left the medical bay together, Jessica fell into step beside James. "You know," she said, "the council is probably going to want to interview you about this." James shrugged. "Let 'em come. Meantime, I got an engine to fix on deck 9. "James," she called as he started to walk away. He turned back, eyebrows raised. "Thank you for remembering that some things are more important than paperwork." He smiled, a genuine warm expression that reminded her exactly why humans had earned their reputation across the galaxy, not for their technology or their aggression or their adaptability, but for something simpler and infinitely more complex: their stubborn, irrational, beautiful insistence that every life was worth saving. "Any time." "Jess," he said, "any time." In the weeks that followed, Station Kepler 442 would see its first human galactic veterinary exchange program. Dr. Zelvoth would formally petition the council to update their protocols, and a small 6-legged creature would occasionally appear in the maintenance bay on deck 9, its fur a happy green, looking for the human who whispered "Easy, buddy," when the rest of the galaxy had given up. Some stories spread across the stars not because they were extraordinary, but because they reminded every species of something fundamental. Compassion required no translation, and healing began with 2 simple words and a gentle touch.